Hey guys, welcome to the Hot Rod Reverend channel. We're here today to talk Y-Block Ford V8. That's the 239, 256, 272, 292, and 312. Maybe you've bought a truck or a car and you're trying to figure it all out. Recently, I had one of our subscribers that went through a lot of problems with the 1954 239 Y-Block he was working on. So what I want to go through is just some common issues that you may run up against if you buy a car or truck, some project, and you don't know what somebody's done previously. Now, the first big issue with the Y-Block that a lot of people make as a mistake concerns the timing gear set. Now, I've got a picture right here, and we'll just put it up here right in front of you, and you can tell right there that the timing gears do not set up like a small block Chevrolet or like a lot of V8s, some of them from the 50s and 60s and 70s and so on. You can tell where the dots are at here. Now, a lot of people will say that the camshaft gear needs to be at the 3 o'clock position. You can tell from this photo here in the book that it's not exactly at the 3 o'clock. It's really closer to 4 with the camshaft gear, but you can count 12 pins between the two dots, the crankshaft dot and of course the camshaft dot as well. The mistake a lot of guys make on this, number one, they'll try to put both of the dots kind of lined up to each other, and that's a big mistake, of course. Second problem that guys will have is that they'll say, okay, I've got 12, and they won't line it up exactly like you see in this diagram. Now, here's why. Let me show you this again. I know this shop manual is kind of old, but it really tells a story here with this diagram. What you see in the diagram here is very important. You can see the relationship of the dot on the crankshaft gear, how close it is to your timing chain. Some guys will have it 2 teeth up. And what that means is that they'll take this crank gear and they'll have it spun up to where the dot's kind of up here or a different relationship or whatever. And they'll say, I've got 12 pins. And you got to make sure that you're kind of matching this up. I've seen guys have these as many as 2 teeth off, and there'll be horrible valve timing events going on. So you want to make sure this is correct. I encourage you, if you buy a car or truck that has a Y-Block in it and you're having some trouble with what's going on, it feels kind of sluggish and just not performing the right way, do all the normal stuff. Your compression test for all cylinders and a tune-up and things like that that's common to all engines. But don't be afraid. Take off that timing cover and take a look at the timing set and just make sure that it's spot on. Now, I'll leave a link here in the description to let you know you can check out this guy's 54 Ford project and probably be a help to him if you guys could do that. But one of the things that a lot of guys get wrong with setting the valve lash is that you have to understand that the crankshaft dampener has got to make 2 full rotations for your firing order to complete. Now, we know what the Y-Block firing order is, 1, 5, 4, 8, 6, 3, 7, 2. So if you're going to go through the firing order, you've also got to know how your cylinders are numbered. The Y-Block's a little bit different. It starts over on the passenger side up front with number 1, and it'll come all the way back 1 through 4 on the passenger side. Then 5 will start up front on the driver's side and go all the way back to cylinder number 8. So you got to know, obviously, the numbers of your cylinders. One thing that a lot of the early intake manifolds will have on them, they'll have each cylinder numbered, number 1. Number 2, they'll also have the intake manifold probably have the firing order stamped right on the intake itself to make it easy for you when you go through this process. Just to explain to you what I mean, I've got a 56 4-barrel intake here on my 292 Ford Y-Block, and I fool around with intakes and carbs, and I'm always swapping stuff in and out, doing my own little fun. But number 1, you've got the firing order right behind the boss for the thermostat, and you see it right there. It's all listed out for you, but you've also got the numbering of each cylinder. So you see 5, 6, 7. If we went on the other side, of course, of that boss for the accelerator linkage, we'd have number 8. What does get me is that a lot of guys just miss this. They don't pay attention to what's there. Now, every shop manual from 1954 to 64 car and truck is going to have the procedure for how to take care of setting your valve lash. So you can see right here, it's all listed out for you. I know there's no diagrams, but it kind of goes through and explains, hey, here's our firing order. Start at top dead center with number 1. Make sure you're on that compression stroke. Good, and then go 90 degrees with your crankshaft dampener. Then you're going to hit number 5. That'll be at top dead center. Adjust both of those valves, intake and exhaust. Then go to number 4. You just keep following through. But every time that you are going to set the valve lash for intake and exhaust, you would go 90 degrees on your crankshaft dampener. Now, that's obviously one way to do it. My buddy Tim McMaster, he's got a great video on his YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link down here so you can watch that. It's got thousands of views. It really does a good job. He explains it very easily. But always go back through and make sure that your valve lash is set correctly. Now, what gave away in that subscriber's video was just simply this. He had some cylinders that had great compression and others that were extremely low. The engine looked like somebody had done some things to it. It looked pretty clean. So it's kind of the best guess just to say, bound to be somebody didn't set the valve lash correctly, and that's why you got some of those valves that you're really not getting good compression because they were set in very much the wrong manner. Now, I've got a rocker arm here, and just so you guys know, there are such a thing as high ratio 1.54. Technically, it's not that high compared to today's standards, but 1.54, and then all the others are 1.43. The designation is the ECG 6564. It'll be an A2 or a B2. These I've just had done at Rocker Arms Unlimited, all 16 of these. Not cheap to do, but Rocker Arms Unlimited does a great job. But the way you set the valve lash here is you've got an adjuster. These are the one-piece jobs. They're kind of simple. Ford had a couple types, one with a 7/16 head, the other one with a 1/2-inch head. But these are interference fit. So these only go down so far, and then they'll kind of, you feel like you're kind of jamming up. You can't really do it much with your fingers, okay? But hopefully the interference will just keep this tight in the setting. I like the two-piece adjusters. To me, I know it's a lot to fiddle with. You got a wrench that you're using, a screwdriver, but these will go all the way through, and then you just basically take your lock nut and just lock it down wherever you need your lash. These are the kind really that I prefer. All right, so if you've just bought a project car or project truck, or maybe you picked up an engine, someone's told you that it's been rebuilt, it's always best to go back through it, check the valve lash, check the timing set, make sure that whatever is installed on the engine was installed appropriately. I would even dare say, check your bearing clearances. Maybe if you don't want to pull a head or two, go in there with the bore scope into each cylinder and check out what's going on, see what happens there. You obviously want to make sure that when you get a lot of stuff together, you also run your oil pump with a drill or with a speed handle, and just to make sure that you're getting oil all the way up to the top end, that you do have oil pressure. A lot of different things can happen. You want to make sure things are set before you fire off that engine for the first time. All right, now it's so important that we understand the basics, and sometimes we take these things for granted, but what you need air fuel, you need spark, and you also need compression. All those things are related to the parts that have been installed and assembled in this engine before you bought it. I would encourage you to kind of run through a checklist to make sure everything is timed appropriately. That's the timing of your distributor, making sure that before you fire off this engine, you're pointed to number 1 on your distributor cap. Make sure all your spark plug wires are got the right firing order. Do understand that the firing order for the Y block is counterclockwise. A lot of guys will get that wrong and mess that up. It's counterclockwise around that distributor cap. And then 2, you also want to make sure that with the timing, you're not 180 out. You want to make sure that you're coming up on top dead center with a compression stroke for number 1 cylinder when your rotor's pointing at number 1 for your cap. You've also got to make sure that your valve timing events are correct. And that's where things like your timing gear set, things like your lash on your valves, make sure that that's set appropriately as well. Otherwise, you're going to have real trouble Why? Because you get to number 3, you're not going to have compression. Now we know you could have broken rings. There could be other things as well. Burnt, I don't know. You get a lot of different things. But I'm talking about the kind of engines that you get from somebody that someone says it's been rebuilt or it couldn't get it to run. We've had it for a long time. The thing looks relatively clean. It looks like something you can get to fire. Run through those 3 things: compression, spark, and then your air-fuel mixture. Now, one last thing before you go, and that's this. I always encourage you to double check that you've got enough oil pressure coming to the top end and getting into that rocker arm shaft. Making sure that these are oiled are very important. What you do need to do is pull your distributor, get yourself a 1/4-inch drive socket, make sure it's secured to a shaft, use a speed handle or use a drill, go counterclockwise, spin that oil pump, make sure that you're getting oil up to both sides of your rocker arm assemblies or your heads. One thing to remember is that Ford made 2 different types of camshaft bearings. There's the most common would probably be the groove camshaft bearing, and that's kind of simplistic. You don't have to rotate the camshaft at all. You're just going to get oil coming up through that entire groove and going up to both sides if the passages are clear. The second type that Ford made is basically what would you say is cross-drilled. Now that means that there's not going to be a groove on the inside diameter of that camshaft bearing, and that means that technically there's the cross drill. There's 4 holes that really has just been drilled through twice with 2 passages, but they intersect, so you cross drill. 4 holes there in that camshaft that what you have to do is get that camshaft to line up with the holes in your camshaft bearings so that you can get the oil up to the top end on either side. That is important to remember. Some guys will complain, I can't get any oil up to the top end. This has been rebuilt, and they just don't know. So the cross-drilled camshaft bearings, ironically, you'd think about this, 54, 55, some of the 56s had them, but you get into the 57 model year, maybe late 56, you got the groove camshaft bearings. You get up into the late 60s, for some odd reason, I don't know why, never could figure this out, Ford did go back to, a lot of the 292s, they did go back to the cross-drilled camshaft. So keep that in mind when you're trying to double check that you've got oil all the way up to the top end. Now, don't forget, here on the Hot Rod Reverend channel, I've got a great video that kind of explains and it kind of shows you how a head is made and the block and the oil passages and all of that. If you're having trouble getting the oil up to the top end for each rocker arm assembly, got a great video that explains how to get that done, and I think it'd be a big help to you. All right, guys, that's about it. One reminder, if you haven't done this, I encourage you, whatever car or truck you own, buy yourself a shop manual. They're very cheap. If you're really cheap, you can pick them up at swap meets, used like this one that's really old and got a lot of problems, loose pages, but it's great. You can get a digital copy online. There's restoration supply companies that will sell them reproduction printed. It's really handy to have a shop manual. You go through all the specifications. The shop manual is not just going to have procedures for how to disassemble or assemble. It's also going to have all of your torque specifications. It's going to have all the measurements. We just talked about valve lash. You think about clearances. You think about capacities, all those kinds of things. In the back of the shop manual, they'll all have those specs for you. I encourage you wholeheartedly, get yourself a shop manual for the model year of truck or car that you have. I do have an article here. I'll put a link in the description for you where I talk about some of the best books you can buy. I've got a video here on the Hot Rod Reverend channel about that. I've also got an article on my website, hotrodreverend.com. These things are sure to be a help to you as you work on your project. Well, guys, God bless you, and we'll see you here on the next one.